You've been taking the same blood pressure pill for years, and you assume it's still working. But what if it isn't? What if the medication that was protecting your heart last year is quietly failing you right now, and your doctor hasn't noticed? There are 3 specific warning signs your current blood pressure medication is no longer doing its job, and most people over 60 have experienced at least one of them without ever connecting the dots. Here's what terrifies me most. These signs are easy to dismiss as normal aging: fatigue, dizziness, morning headaches. Your body is screaming at you, and the system is telling you everything is fine. It isn't. Stay with me until the end, because the third warning sign on this list is the one that concerns me most as a physician. It's the one that silently doubles your stroke risk before a single alarm goes off on any monitor. And the vast majority of my patients had no idea it existed until they sat in my office. I'm Dr. Patricia Holloway, a physician specialized in senior health with over 15 years of dedicated clinical experience. I've worked with thousands of men and women over 60, navigating the long road of blood pressure management, medication adjustments, and the frustrating disconnect between what the numbers say and how your body actually feels. What I'm about to share goes against the assumption that a prescription written years ago is still the right prescription today. The pharmaceutical industry profits from long-term prescriptions. Your insurance makes renewals easy, and your doctor, often overloaded with 15-minute appointments, may not have the time to look deeper. But I've seen what happens when these warning signs get ignored, and I refuse to stay silent any longer. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. How long have you been on your current blood pressure medication? Less than a year, 1 to 5 years, or more than 5 years? Type your answer in the comments right now. You will be surprised how many people watching this have been on the exact same prescription for a decade or more without a single medication review. Here is what most people do not understand about blood pressure medications and aging. Your body changes dramatically after 60. Understand about blood pressure medications and aging. Your body changes dramatically after 60. Your kidneys process medications differently. Your arteries stiffen. Your liver enzymes shift. Your hormone levels drop. The cardiovascular landscape of a 65-year-old is not the same as a 50-year-old, and it is certainly not the same as it was when that original prescription was written. A medication that was perfectly calibrated to your biology 5 years ago may now be either dangerously underpowered or quietly creating side effects that are stealing your quality of life. According to research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, more than 40% of adults over 65 who have been on the same antihypertensive medication for more than 3 years without a formal medication review are either undertreated, overtreated, or experiencing adverse drug interactions they are unaware of. 40%. That is not a small number. That is nearly half of all older adults on long-term blood pressure treatment. And here is the mechanism that nobody explains to patients. Blood pressure medications work through very specific biological pathways. Beta blockers slow the heart rate. ACE inhibitors relax the blood vessel walls. Diuretics reduce fluid volume. Calcium channel blockers prevent arterial spasm. Each of these pathways depends on receptors, enzymes, and metabolic processes that change with age. As those processes shift, the medication's effectiveness shifts too, sometimes dramatically. The pill looks the same in your hand every morning, but what it is actually doing inside your 68, 72, or 79-year-old body may be completely different from what it was doing when you first got that prescription. And here is what concerns me even more. When blood pressure medications stop working properly, the consequences are not always loud. There is no alarm, no obvious warning. The damage accumulates quietly in the walls of your arteries, in the tiny vessels feeding your kidneys, your eyes, your brain. Silent hypertensive end organ damage is one of the most dangerous and underdiagnosed conditions in adults over 60. And it often starts when a medication that used to work simply stops keeping up. If you are finding this valuable so far, please hit that like button right now. This information is something every adult over 60 with a blood pressure prescription needs to hear. Now let us get into the 3 warning signs. These are not obscure medical phenomena. These are patterns I have seen repeatedly in my clinic, signals that the body sends when blood pressure management has drifted off course. And once you know what to look for, you will never ignore them again. Warning sign number 1. Your morning readings are consistently higher than your afternoon or evening readings, and that gap has been widening. Most people who monitor their blood pressure at home notice some variation throughout the day, and that is completely normal. Blood pressure naturally rises in the morning as your body wakes up, a phenomenon called the morning surge, and it tends to dip slightly in the afternoon and evening. For most medications, the goal is to smooth out these peaks and keep the overall numbers in a safe range across the full 24-hour cycle. But here is what to watch for. If you are taking your medication in the morning and your readings are running consistently high before that dose, or if you are noticing that your evening numbers are fine, but your morning numbers have been creeping up month after month, that is a sign that your medication's coverage window is no longer adequate for your body. This is called end-of-dose failure. It happens when a medication that was designed to last 24 hours starts wearing off in 18 or 20 hours instead. Your body's metabolism may have sped up its processing of the drug, or the formulation that once worked perfectly is simply no longer matching your current physiology. The result is a window of inadequate blood pressure control in the early morning, precisely when your stroke and heart attack risk is already at its daily peak. A 2021 study published in Frontiers in Aging found that adults over 65 with uncontrolled morning blood pressure surges had a 63% higher risk of cardiovascular events compared to those with stable 24-hour control, even when their average daily readings looked acceptable. Think about that. Your doctor looks at your most recent reading in the office. Maybe it was a fine afternoon appointment. The number looks decent. The prescription gets renewed. But nobody is seeing what happens at 6 in the morning when your medication has nearly run its course and your arteries are under the most stress they will face all day. How do you catch this? Monitor your blood pressure at home at 2 specific times every day for 2 weeks. First thing in the morning before you take your medication, and again in the late afternoon or early evening. Write the numbers down. If your morning pre-medication readings are averaging more than 10 points higher than your afternoon readings, and this pattern has been consistent for more than 2 weeks, that is a conversation you need to have with your physician immediately. The fix might be as simple as switching to a longer-acting formulation, adjusting the timing of your dose, or adding a small complementary medication to cover that morning window. But you will never know unless you catch the pattern first. Here is a pro tip that most people miss. Always take your blood pressure readings while seated, after 5 minutes of rest, with your arm at heart level and at the same times each day. Small inconsistencies in technique can create 3 to 5 point variations that make it nearly impossible to spot a real trend. Now, let us move to warning sign number 2, and this one is subtler but just as important. Warning sign number 2. You are experiencing new or worsening fatigue, brain fog, or lightheadedness when you stand up, and you have been writing it off as just getting older. I want to be very direct here. Fatigue after 60 is common. Brain fog is common. Feeling a little dizzy when you stand up too fast is common. And that is precisely why this warning sign is so dangerous, because it hides in plain sight. When a blood pressure medication is either too strong for your current physiology or is interacting with age-related metabolic changes in a way it was not designed to handle, one of the first places it shows up is in your energy levels and cognitive sharpness. Specifically, if your medication is now lowering your blood pressure more aggressively than your body needs, you may be experiencing episodes of relative hypotension, pressure that drops too low relative to your individual baseline, particularly when you change positions. This condition is called orthostatic hypotension, and in adults over 60, it is associated with a significantly elevated risk of falls, fainting, and reduced blood flow to the brain. A 2023 study in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 70 with medication-related orthostatic hypotension were 47% more likely to report cognitive difficulties and 2.6 times more likely to experience a fall-related injury within a 12-month period. But here is the critical thing I need you to understand. This is not your body failing. This is not simply aging. This is your medication either doing too much or doing the wrong thing for the person you are today. And it is entirely correctable. I need to tell you about Patricia. Patricia was a 74-year-old retired school teacher from Atlanta. She had been on the same beta blocker and diuretic combination for 6 years. When she came to my office, she told me she had been feeling exhausted for about 18 months. She would sit down at noon and wake up 2 hours later with no memory of falling asleep. She had stopped driving because she felt unsafe. She had given up her weekly water aerobics class because getting up from the pool steps left her so lightheaded she was afraid of falling. Her husband had started making excuses to be home more often because he was worried about leaving her alone. She told me, and I remember her exact words, "Doctor, I thought this was just what 74 was supposed to feel like. I thought I was just getting old." Her chart looked fine. Her sitting blood pressure in the office was 118/74, perfectly controlled, technically. But when I checked her pressure standing after 2 minutes, it dropped to 94/61. That is a drop of 24 systolic points. That was her body. That was what her medication was doing to her every time she stood up, walked to the bathroom, got out of bed in the morning. We adjusted her medications. Specifically, we reduced her diuretic dose and shifted her to a different class of medication that had a more gradual pressure effect. Within 3 weeks, she called my office to tell me she had been back to water aerobics twice. Her husband sent me a handwritten note. He said, "I have my wife back." This was not a miracle. This was listening to what her body was telling us and having the courage to revisit a prescription that the calendar said did not need revisiting. And you deserve that same attention. If you have been feeling unusually tired, mentally foggy, or dizzy when you stand up, please do not write it off. Tell your doctor. Specifically ask about orthostatic blood pressure testing. It is a simple check that takes 5 minutes and can tell you something critically important about how your medication is affecting you in real life, not just in a seated office appointment. Before we continue, if this video is opening your eyes to something you have not heard from your own doctor, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. My mission is to give adults over 60 the real information they need to advocate for themselves, and share this with someone who has been on blood pressure medication for years. You might just prompt a conversation that saves their life. Now, warning sign number 3. This is the one that concerns me most. This is the sign that flies completely under the radar for most patients and most busy physicians. And this is the one that silently precedes the events we most want to prevent. Warning sign number 3. Your blood work shows changes in kidney function, potassium, or sodium levels, even within the so-called normal range, and nobody has connected those changes to your blood pressure medication. Let me explain why this matters so profoundly. Many of the most commonly prescribed blood pressure medications have direct and ongoing effects on the kidneys and on your body's electrolyte balance. Diuretics, which are among the most frequently prescribed antihypertensives and are often combined with other medications in a single pill, work by making your kidneys excrete more sodium and water. This lowers blood volume and reduces pressure. But over years, in an aging kidney that is already operating at reduced efficiency, this constant diuretic pressure can cause progressive potassium depletion, sodium imbalance, and a gradual decline in kidney filtration rate. The terrifying part is that all of these changes can stay within what the lab report calls the normal range and still represent a significant drift from your personal baseline. A potassium level of 3.6 is technically normal, but if your potassium was 4.42 years ago and nobody noticed it falling, that shift matters enormously. Low potassium at the lower end of normal is associated with increased cardiac arrhythmia risk, muscle weakness, fatigue, and constipation. And because the lab still prints a reassuring normal next to the number, the trend gets ignored. According to research published in the New England Journal of Medicine, adults over 65 on long-term diuretic therapy have a 38% higher incidence of clinically significant potassium depletion compared to age-matched peers not on diuretics. And those with potassium at the lower end of the normal range have a 51% higher rate of hospitalization for cardiac events within 3 years. Meanwhile, ACE inhibitors and ARBs, another commonly prescribed class, can actually elevate potassium and strain kidney filtration in the opposite direction. And as kidneys age, the margin for error on both sides narrows considerably. Here is what I want you to do. Pull out your last 2 or 3 sets of bloodwork results. If you do not have copies, call your doctor's office and request them. You are legally entitled to your own medical records. Look specifically at 3 numbers: creatinine, which measures kidney filtration, potassium, and sodium. Now compare those numbers across your most recent results. Are they moving in one direction? Have they shifted even within the normal range? If the answer is yes, and nobody has proactively discussed this with you in the context of your blood pressure medication, that is a gap in your care that you need to address. I want to tell you about James. James was a 79-year-old retired engineer from Philadelphia. He had been on a combination pill, a diuretic plus ACE inhibitor, for 9 years. He came to my office not because of blood pressure concerns, but because his daughter had noticed that he had become increasingly unsteady walking to the mailbox. He mentioned he had been having muscle cramps at night that were waking him up. His legs felt heavy. He tired easily doing tasks that used to be simple. His sitting blood pressure was excellent. 122/76. His doctor was very pleased with that number. But when we ran a full metabolic panel and compared it to his results from 2 years prior, the picture was very different. His creatinine had risen from 1.1 to 1.5, still technically within range. His potassium had dropped from 4.2 to 3.4. His sodium was drifting low, his kidneys were under sustained stress, and his muscles were starved of the minerals they needed to function. We changed his medication protocol. We eliminated the diuretic component, switched to a different drug class that was gentler on his kidneys, and added a dietary potassium strategy to rebuild his levels. We monitored his labs monthly for 3 months. After 6 weeks, he came back to the office. He walked in without his cane for the first time in a year. He told me, "Doctor, I thought those cramps and that weakness were just me getting old. I had no idea my medication had anything to do with it. I wish someone had caught this sooner." That last sentence, "I wish someone had caught this sooner." I hear it more often than I should, and it is why I make these videos. Now let us talk about what to actually do with this information, because knowledge without action is just worry. And I do not want you to worry, I want you to act. Here is exactly how to move forward starting this week. Step 1. Start a blood pressure log if you do not already have one. Take your blood pressure first thing every morning before your medication, and again in the late afternoon. Do this every day for 2 weeks. Note any dizziness when standing. Note your energy levels. Note any new symptoms. Bring this log to your next doctor appointment. Step 2. Request a medication review. You have every right to say to your physician, "I would like to formally review my blood pressure medication today. I have been on this prescription for several years, and I want to make sure it is still the right fit for my body." Any physician worth their training will welcome this conversation. If they dismiss it, you have the right to seek a second opinion. Step 3. Request updated blood work with a focus on kidney function and electrolytes. Specifically ask for creatinine, BUN, potassium, and sodium. If you have previous results, compare the trends. Ask your doctor to compare them too. Step 4. Ask specifically about orthostatic hypotension testing at your next appointment. This is simply having your blood pressure taken while sitting and then again after standing for 2 minutes. It costs nothing. It takes 5 minutes, and it can reveal something critically important about how your medication is affecting your real-world function. Step 5. Do not adjust or stop your medication on your own. I want to be absolutely clear about this. Blood pressure medications should never be stopped abruptly without medical supervision. What I am asking you to do is advocate for a review, gather information, and have an informed conversation with your physician. The goal is better management, not abandonment of management. Here is a common mistake I want you to avoid. Do not wait for your annual physical. If you are experiencing any of the 3 warning signs I described today, morning blood pressure spikes, new fatigue or lightheadedness on standing or shifting kidney and electrolyte numbers, schedule a specific appointment to discuss your blood pressure medication. Do not assume it will come up on its own. In a 15-minute annual physical covering everything from your cholesterol to your vaccination status, there is often simply not enough time for a nuanced medication review unless you make it the explicit focus. The second mistake I see constantly is assuming that if the blood pressure number looks good in the office, everything is fine. Blood pressure management is not just about a single number taken in a single moment. It is about 24-hour stability, kidney protection, electrolyte balance, and quality of life. A perfect reading in the office can coexist with serious problems happening everywhere else. And the third mistake, perhaps the most heartbreaking, is dismissing your own symptoms because they seem too vague or too just aging to mention. Fatigue, brain fog, dizziness, muscle cramps, morning headaches. These are not inevitable features of getting older. These are signals, and they deserve to be heard. Here is your challenge for the next 30 days. Commit to 3 things. First, start your blood pressure log tomorrow morning and maintain it for 30 days. Second, schedule a medication review appointment before the end of this month, not your next annual physical, a dedicated conversation about your blood pressure management. Third, pull your last 3 sets of bloodwork results and compare the trends in your kidney and electrolyte numbers. Your heart has been working faithfully for every one of your 60, 70, 80 or more years. The least we can do is make sure the medication meant to protect it is actually still doing its job. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a doctor proactively review your blood pressure medication with you without you asking for it? Type yes if it happened, or no if it has never come up in an appointment. I read every single comment, and your answer genuinely helps other viewers understand what is normal and what is a gap in care. So, to bring everything together. Today, we covered 3 critical warning signs that your blood pressure medication may need a review. First, a widening gap between your morning and afternoon readings, which may indicate end-of-dose failure. Second, new or worsening fatigue, brain fog, or lightheadedness on standing, which may signal medication-related orthostatic hypotension. And third, trends in your bloodwork showing kidney function or electrolyte changes, even within the normal range, that nobody has connected to your prescription. None of these signs means your medication is wrong. What they mean is that your body has changed and your medication may need to change with it. That is not failure. That is how good medicine works. You are not broken. Your prescription may simply be overdue for a conversation, and now you know exactly what to say and exactly what to ask for. If this video helped you see something you had not seen before, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Every week, I bring you straightforward, science-backed health information designed specifically for adults over 60. No jargon, no scare tactics, just real answers. And share this video with someone you love who has been on blood pressure medication for years without a formal review. A single conversation with their doctor, prompted by what they learned here today, could make all the difference. Because aging does not take away your body's ability to adapt. It simply asks you to pay closer attention, and you are doing exactly that right now. Take care of yourself.